as well. And it's a great pleasure because we have joining us now the Global Director of Identity Platforms from Sky. She's here to talk about how she has stepped up as a new joiner in her organisation to be a role model for others. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Laura Moore.
Well, I thought this would be the graveyard shift after lunch, but obviously Anne-Marie had a big enough pool and we have a full room, so it's nice to see you all. Obviously, hearing all of that, Anne-Marie is going to be one of your role models for sure, but I just want you to consider who are your role models, because I think to understand what we should do as role models, we need to think who are ours. And sometimes you look far afield at famous people, at the Michelle Obamas and the Oprah Winfreys. And other times you look closer to home. You'll think about your mother or your daughter or your neighbour. But then at a certain point, you will think about, it's me. And that is a moment to pause. When you realise that someone does think of you as a role model. And as people have said, it can be the smallest things. It's not necessarily the grandiose ideas. It's sometimes just showing up as your authentic self. So, you're getting the professional version of me, hopefully, today. But there's other versions. I am a mum. I'm a single mum. I juggle 2 kids. That isn't always worthy of role modelling as you fluster through a week. You're a friend to people. And it is about how do you engage? How do you show the best version of yourself? And we heard earlier on at the kind of top of the hour, it's not just about in our professional lives as we build our teams, about recruitment, it's also about retention. And I've been really lucky when I joined Sky about a year ago. I managed to bring with me some of my previous life. And it's okay to change companies. Sometimes you need a career change. And sometimes it's for a good reason. And sometimes it is getting out of your own comfort zone that then opens you up to opportunities. And opportunities to do something a little bit different. And so the stars lined up when I was joining Sky. And I used to work for Vodafone, and I had a strategic partner with IBM. And I used to work with them on, some really esoteric style questions. I run a technology team. I had good representation of females in the team, but I lacked the same representation at the high performers and the high potentials. So that was one of the questions I actually explored with IBM. What do you do? How do you deal with that? And so we were having these types of conversations just as part of our professional relationship. And so when I went to Sky, they said, do you want to continue those conversations? And I went, yeah, I'm just going to see what we can do here. I'm going to try something. And it's lucky when you come into a senior position within an organisation, you get a little bit of runway and you can kind of take the newbie card and you can kind of go, I'm just going to do some stuff until someone tells me to stop. And over the last year, no one's told me to stop, so it's been great. And we created this kind of professional leadership development programme focused on women. And it's called Lift. And it is purposely to acknowledge that you need to lift as you climb, is how we put it. And you need to bring other women up. And we need to create space because it's not scarcity anymore. Someone else said that. It's like sometimes women haven't always enabled and supported other women because there's been this scarcity mentality that there's not enough room at the table. But there is enough room, and we can only do that by pulling everyone else through. So we have 2 strands to this programme called Lift. One is the external one, where we continue to collaborate with IBM, Vodafone, and some other organisations. We've held some face-to-face events that post-COVID you can imagine, have been super well received. Internally, though, we use it in Sky as our leadership programme, specifically targeted at our heads of departments and our director level. Now, you may think, why do you target it at that specific niche? And we heard a little bit about this concept around middle management and how do you support them. Because I think it's also when women reach that point in their career, you do lose them. Sometimes they might get distracted because they've had family, they move further away, they don't have time to really continue to elevate themselves from the technical contribution. Or it might just be that they actually are fed up being the only woman in some of these forums. We heard that statistic about, 8 men to 2 women in a meeting of 10. And I have that myself in some of the leadership meetings where I am the only female. And I do have 2 daughters, so part of my motivation for doing this type of thing is to make sure it is better for them. And so we really focus at Sky on developing that niche for the female leadership. And we do some explicit actions. This week we're doing a Strengths Finder exercise. So everyone's filled in that kind of questionnaire survey, and then we have the feedback session. So there's some explicit activities. But there is also those implicit activities where it's about belonging. It's about building a community. And it's about making sure that people have somewhere to go when they are maybe feeling a bit adrift. Because as you transition from being an individual contributor, when you maybe have a team of people that you collaborate with day to day, it can be a little bit lonely and it can be a little bit isolating because you are supposed to know what you're doing when you get to that heads of and directors. And so that's where we invest as well. It's not just about the academic kind of learning new skills. It's also about that emotional connection. And I would say that when you find yourself in these opportunities, because this one was unplanned to create this whole programme around Lift, but the stars just lined up and there was a gap in what we were trying to achieve. And I continued, as I said, until someone told me to stop, and they haven't. And it's now one of our fundamental pillars of our people strategy at Sky, where we invest in our women. And for me, it's a bit uncomfortable, right, to find yourself as that role model, because how did you get here? What makes you qualified? And for those of you who went to the other stage earlier on, there is a little bit of that imposter syndrome that comes in. But I think it's about building your own support network as well. So we heard a little bit from Anne-Marie about being that sphere of influence that you have. But it's as much around looking after yourself, that self-care too, so that you're strong enough to kind of be breaking some ground in what you're trying to do and not be over-ambitious. Think about the small steps that you can take and get comfortable also being a bit vulnerable. Get comfortable about people giving you compliments as well. It's a really difficult thing sometimes to receive feedback, whether you're used to getting this negative feedback. And so when people see you as role models, the very generous people will acknowledge that and give you some really positive feedback. So it's also about stepping into that role, accepting it as a role model, and being prepared to take those compliments too. And I think that would be one of my kind of call to actions for all of you, is when you have those role models that are around you, please give them feedback, because sometimes it is, you never know, sometimes it feels like a broadcast of information, and it's not always a feedback loop. So that would be one of my call to actions I would ask you, is acknowledge your role models. Tell them what it is that you like about what they do or how they do it. And also, if you feel that you want to become more of a role model, then we heard a lot about that mentoring, the coaching. Ask for help. Figure out what it is you want to be known for, and really start building up some of that personal branding for yourself. And it is okay to be uncomfortable as we do it, and that is one of the key things that I found moving into Sky, is being the newbie, having to rebuild some of that support network. But it's a great place to be. I'm very pleased to have had the opportunity to come and tell you a little bit about our journey at Sky. And as I said, to close off, please let your role models know that they are your role models and give them some positive feedback. Thank you.